Good morning and welcome to the Morning Edition Extra. I'm Tracy Sinclair. I am jumping in for Adelmi Ruiz today. And we've got a lot on tap for you today. We're going to be talking politics, local and national. We're also got some good news stories. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about privacy and Chat GPT. So a lot going on, but we do want to start with the latest coming out of Juneau because yesterday was the second day of the legislative session and the governor held a press conference. The governor made the announcement yesterday about a possible sales tax that he is going to propose for Alaska. It was in response to a question from our political reporter, Will Courtney, during that press conference, and that included the governor's cabinet members, each talking about their accomplishments during his administration. As for the sales tax, not a lot of details, but he said it would be a temporary seasonal sales tax. We are likely to get more details tonight in the State of the State. This issue dates back to December when Governor Dunleavy said he'd introduce his budget package to deal with a $1.5 billion deficit. He says his plan could close that gap. The governor also says he still wants a full PFD, but that lawmakers have historically not supported that.
First one is the talk of the town right now. The sales tax is going to be proposed tomorrow. Are you able to put those rumors to rest?
There will be a temporary seasonal sales tax concept put forth for discussion with the legislature.
And how optimistic are you that's going to get passed through the legislature?
That's a tough one, right? It's a tough one. I don't have the answer to that until we start having the discussions.
Again, I'm a firm believer in a complete fiscal plan, not a piecemeal fiscal plan. So I say we have to look at the complete fiscal plan in order for me to decide, yeah, I support that or don't support that.
And that was Senator Mike Cronk. He is the Republican that represents Tok and Northway. The governor is going to present his State of the State address tonight at 7 o'clock. You can watch it right here on our streaming platforms. You want to join us then. There is also a veto override vote that is scheduled for 9 o'clock this morning. The governor has asked that that be put off, so we don't quite know the status of it at this point, but if it does occur, we are anticipating to bring that to you live at 9 this morning as well. And then, of course, if you are interested in politics here in Alaska, you're going to want to check out Alaska's Political Pipeline, which is our podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Now, following the stories that we have over the last couple of days about how many Anchorage homeowners are looking into spiked property valuations. Joe Allgood talked to some homeowners in a number of different neighborhoods yesterday to see how they're reacting to the increase, and that's our top story.
It was an increase over the last couple years, but it did dip last year, and it seemed to have come back up this year.
John Jackson said his valuation went up like a lot of other Anchorage homeowners.
$10,000 from last year.
Jackson's neighbors said their assessment has gone up an average of $30,000 each year since 2020, so they weren't too surprised to see the increase.
40,000, this 30,000, 30,000 or 20,000, and it stayed the same from on 2020 to 21. It was the same.
One couple we spoke to in another part of town even saw a decrease. Overall, Jackson said his neighborhood has remained stable, but he wouldn't mind seeing that change.
I wouldn't mind a younger family moving in here with kids and, being in a good neighborhood and us downsizing. But just like you were saying, it's all relative, right?
But a combination of factors like paid-off mortgages, locked-in low interest rates, and rising property values make that challenging.
That's why I think a lot of people are just holding on to their homes, like a lot of parts of the nation now, a lot of people aren't selling.
Whether or not there is an increase in property taxes, Jackson said maybe the municipality of Anchorage is too reliant on them.
I do feel that a lot of people are just getting tired of throwing their money in the hat, so to speak, without having a choice over it, and what are they getting out of it is, I guess, the bottom line.
Joe Allgood, Alaska's news source.
And we are continuing to follow this story. On average, assessed home values rose by 4.3% this year, and that is according to officials with the municipality. If you'd like to see the rest of our coverage, check out alaskasnewssource.com. The owner of a Fairbanks medical group was back in a Fairbanks courtroom yesterday, facing even more felony charges. Casey Blood remains in custody, accused of sexually abusing 2 minors. His preliminary hearing, which is set for today, has been delayed for a second time. The reason for the court's decision to postpone is unclear. Meanwhile, Blood's Alcan Medical Clinic is scheduled to close on January 1st. An 87-year-old Fairbanks grandmother has died in what the police are calling a homicide. A family member is now facing serious charges in connection with her death. Our investigative team did look at those court documents. Investigators say 29-year-old Brian Davenport shot and killed his 87-year-old grandmother, Velma Kuntz, at her residence on 22nd Avenue in Fairbanks on Tuesday afternoon. Court documents show the Fairbanks Police Department initially responded to a 911 hang-up call from the address about 3 o'clock Tuesday. The officers found Davenport outside the home behaving erratically and took him to Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, where he was placed on a mental health hold. Less than an hour later, authorities received a separate report of gunshots fired from the same location. When police arrived, they found Kuntz dead in the home. Officers say she was still seated in her wheelchair with a fatal gunshot wound to the back of her head. At the hospital, Davenport reportedly told the officer that he had killed someone. During questioning, Davenport admitted to taking a firearm from his grandfather with plans of initially harming someone else before turning the gun on his grandmother to let her, quote, pass peacefully. Investigators did learn that Kuntz was under hospice care and had been diagnosed with intestinal cancer. However, according to police reports, Davenport acknowledged that Kuntz had never expressed any wishes or concerns to him. Kuntz's son, George Kuntz, was in the courtroom today, saying Davenport has a history of not taking his medication and encouraging the state not to release him.
He's a danger to the public. Obviously, he assaulted his mother last summer, and now my mother.
Davenport remains locked up at the Fairbanks Correctional Center, where he is being held on a $5 million bail for first-degree murder as the investigation continues. More than $2,000 worth of collectible cards were stolen from an Anchorage man's car on Tuesday. Now his friends are raising money to help replace what he lost. Matthew Allen says his girlfriend's mom found the back window of his car smashed and a box containing a set of his Magic the Gathering cards missing. He first began collecting the cards in 2022 and frequently plays the game with his friends. Some of those friends started a GoFundMe to help Matthew replace the cards, which has already raised hundreds.
Like I was telling somebody, like if my tear ducts didn't dry up already, I would be crying, you know. So, yeah, it's awesome. I'll definitely work on getting the stuff that was special to me first, and then work on maybe some new stuff. But you guys, my friends, if you see this, thank you a lot. I really appreciate it.
Magic the Gathering first launched in 1993, making it one of the oldest and most collectible trading card games in the world, with some cards selling for thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars. Now, coming up next, of course, we want to check in with what we can expect for our weather. And Aaron, you have all the latest information on what we've got coming our way.
Yeah, we're still holding on to that ridge of high pressure across the state, which is keeping things fairly quiet. Now, one thing we are going to be watching later this week, really later tonight on into Friday, is snow that will move back in across the slope and eventually out towards the interior. But of course, that mild weather remains with us. We've got those sub-zero lows in the interior, while the rest of the state continues to hold on to these warm conditions. We're talking about highs easily climbing into the 20s, 30s, and 40s for many areas of the state. Now, we have seen some freezing fog that has been settling in across South Central through the night. This will likely stay with us into tomorrow as well. We've also got parts of Southeast where we continue to hold on to some dense fog and localized areas of freezing fog. And with plenty quiet weather in the forecast, and as that sun rises today, you may see those trees glistening as that rime ice begins to shine up under that sunshine that we are going to see later today. You can see temperatures this morning: 14 in McGrath, 23 in Utqiagvik, 35 degrees in St. George, 36 in Kodiak, while southeast is seeing those temperatures in the teens and the 20s. And we've been holding on to this quiet and warm weather pattern since the weekend, and we're going to continue to keep this trend with us. And you can see even along the slope, those temperatures continue to remain fairly warm. Even into the interior, notice the first 2 weeks of January, we saw bitter cold conditions, more so the first couple of days of the month, where temperatures were sitting anywhere from about 40 to 50 below. And then as we turned into the second half of the month, those temperatures warmed. The warmest day that Fairbanks did see this month was 32 degrees, which was back on January 16th. That was the warmest day that Fairbanks has seen since right about Halloween. And since then, temperatures have kind of managed to drop back down near to slightly above seasonal values. Of course, yesterday was slightly below, as we only managed to stay at 4 below. But we're going to continue to hold on to these dry conditions across the state. This active weather that we're seeing across the western Aleutians, that's going to ride right over the periphery of that ridge with snow showers building in along the slope. That's also going to bring in that southwesterly flow, so be prepared for increasing warmth. 20s and 30s look possible for the slope today and tomorrow. We will pick up a couple of inches of that snow accumulation. That ridge will begin to flatten into the weekend, so we'll see that snow dropping south into the interior. We may pick up an inch or so of that snowfall accumulation. Of course, better chance for that accumulation will be northeast of the Steese Highway and through parts of the eastern interior. And you can see active weather continues through the Gulf Coast region, Pacific Ocean, and we're going to begin to tap into that moisture potential across South Central as well as the southern coastline as we welcome in the first part of next week. Until then, though, we are going to stay dry, and we're going to continue to keep those temperatures on the milder side. We'll see temperatures today warming into the 20s for inland areas, coastal regions. 30s and 40s will be possible in the forecast, so get outside. Mostly sunny to partly cloudy skies. Avalanche danger continues to improve across South Central. It is moderate below tree line, but above tree line it continues to be considerable. Wild natural avalanches look unlikely. That snowpack is still unstable, so human-triggered avalanches will be possible. We're dry through at least a Sunday afternoon, and then that snow gradually begins to increase across South Central. So we'll be watching for that as we welcome in early next week as we see that return to some of that snow in the forecast. But temperature-wise, mid to upper 20s stay with us. You can see 26 degrees Monday. There is a signs that we will tap into some warmer conditions as January draws to a close. With that return to some snow, we're also going to see temperatures through the interior staying in the single digits for highs. Although by this weekend, we'll see the potential for overnight lows in the interior dropping anywhere from 15 to 20 below, with a brief shot of seeing sub-zero highs into our weekend. And then we do warm back into the single digits next week. Tracy?
Well, looks like it's going to be, as you said, getting a little chillier into the interior, but here in Anchorage, things on the mellow side, not so much down in the lower 48. They are prepping for a monster storm. We're talking about residents in more than 24 states preparing for this storm. It is set to bring damaging ice and heavy snow. The massive storm's impact zone could stretch more than 1,500 miles. That's from the plains across the south and into the northeast. More than 90 million people across parts of 23 states are already under winter storm watches. Of particular concern is the ice set to hit those southern states, making roads treacherous and extended power outages possible. North and South Carolina have already declared states of emergency. Meanwhile, heavy snow up to a foot in some places is expected in some areas of the north once you get above that freezing rain line. The Arctic blast also is going to bring bone-chilling cold, potentially breaking daily highs and daily low records. Now, we also want to talk about a story that's on our website that you can check out. There it is. I keep doing that. There it is. If you scroll down just a little bit on our website, there is this storm right here. Meteorologists blamed this stretched polar vortex, and it talks about this big storm and how actually things from Alaska, impacts from Alaska, could be influencing this, talking about the lack of sea ice and the changes in the Arctic and how this is helping set up necessary conditions for this stretched polar vortex that is going to bring this massive storm into the East Coast and down into the South. So we'll keep watch on that. When we come back, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we are going to talk a little bit of politics and talk some privacy with ChatGPT and how it could be impacting you. And welcome back to the Morning Edition Extra. Now, I'm going to pull out the little old lady card right now. I am a little bit fearful of AI, but it has really become a part of our lives, from our search engines to helping you research things at work. There, though, still that concern about privacy, particularly one of the apps called ChatGPT is being talked about right now. And so here is the latest, watching your wallet.
ChatGPT, the chatbot created by OpenAI, has quickly become a part of daily life for millions. It has seen explosive growth in recent years.
ChatGPT is actually the fastest adopted consumer technology in history so far. Millions of people jumped on it right away.
The program is a type of artificial intelligence called a large language model. You type in a question or a prompt, and it responds almost instantly.
It was one that really broke the dam and got generative AI and chatbots on the minds of the American public.
R.J. Cross, Online Life Program Director at the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, otherwise known as PIRG, says ChatGPT is here to stay, but it also comes with significant privacy concerns.
Privacy is a huge question with any of the chatbot services, and ChatGPT in particular right now. You should not assume that any of your chats with ChatGPT are actually private. That in particular with OpenAI is because there's an ongoing court case with a legal order that has said that OpenAI needs to retain chat logs indefinitely because deleting them could be deleting evidence. So right now, anything you say to ChatGPT is likely being stored on OpenAI servers indefinitely, even if you request it be deleted.
Cross says OpenAI has offered deletion tools in the past and hopes that they will be restored. But her advice for ChatGPT users now?
My personal rule for myself is I never say anything to ChatGPT that I wouldn't be okay with someone else reading.
She also recommends never providing any sensitive information.
OpenAI does not have to follow HIPAA. No tech company has to follow HIPAA. Your health data is only protected by HIPAA when it's in the hands of a doctor's office, a hospital system, or an insurance company. Anything you say to ChatGPT, or in fact your Fitbit or your diet tracking app, no tech company has to follow HIPAA.
For consumers worried about their data, PIRG has a privacy tips guide, including how to opt out of having your chats used for training. And for those who want to use it for research, Cross says do so with caution.
ChatGPT cannot tell a difference between a fact and a lie. Again, it's identified patterns in speech, but it cannot nail facts. And so this is something that I don't see ever going away.
We reached out to OpenAI about what they're doing to improve privacy. They recently relaunched a temporary chats feature which will delete data after 30 days. However, questions remain about how much information is actually being erased under an ongoing court order. With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Sasha Bray.
In other tech news, Snap, the parent company of Snapchat, has agreed to settle a social media addiction lawsuit. A 19-year-old brought the lawsuit claiming the company's app has addictive features that harmed her mental health. The lawsuit also names TikTok and Meta and YouTube. No settlements with those companies were announced, which means the trial will go forward next week in Los Angeles. The companies deny any scientific link between social media use and addiction. Thousands of lawsuits with similar claims have been filed against the four companies. Some of these cases, brought by school districts and states, are set to go forward later this year. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, as I said, we've got politics, some local politics, and some coming out of the national scene. We'll be right back. Welcome back to your Morning Edition Extra. I'm Tracy Sinclair, and we talked a little bit earlier about the governor's statement about a possible sales tax, and we also know that the governor's State of the State will be coming up tonight. You can watch it right here on our streaming platforms starting at 7 o'clock. That's when he's expected to begin. He did also give us a heads up, maybe even a slight warning that it could be a long speech. He made several references yesterday during his press conference to this being his last year in office. This is his second term. He can't run again. And so he did indicate that it could be a long State of the State speech tonight, so we'll be prepared for that. In national news, we've got our own John Thompson and Emma Wolfhurst from our Washington, D.C. Bureau. They're going to look at what's going on in Washington, so what you need to know.
Well, President Donald Trump says he's dropping his tariff threat for European countries, claiming he and the Secretary General of NATO have formed the framework for a future deal on Greenland. Alaska's news source, Washington correspondent Emma Wolfhurst, joining us from D.C. Emma, what is the president saying about all this?
Well, John, President Trump called his meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte productive and said this wasn't just a framework for Greenland, but for the entire Arctic region. He said he will no longer impose those retaliatory tariffs scheduled to go into effect February 1st, and he also backed off the idea of using military force to take over the territory. Now, President Trump added additional discussions are being held with Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff responsible for those negotiations. In a gaggle with reporters Wednesday evening, after this announcement, President Trump said he thought this framework was really fantastic for the U.S. He says he thinks it's ultimately a long-term deal and believes it puts everybody in a good position, quote, especially as it pertains to security and minerals, end quote. Now, in an interview with Fox News Wednesday evening, Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, said control of Greenland was actually not part of his discussion with President Trump Wednesday. He said it was mainly about Arctic security, saying that he agreed with President Trump that collectively we have to protect the Arctic regions, but again says that Greenland control, not what they discussed.
President Trump in Switzerland, and he was part of the World Economic Forum. What is the focus on President Trump's speech to leaders and the European allies?
He spoke for more than an hour and a half Wednesday, and he tried to highlight his efforts to lower inflation and reinvigorate the U.S. economy in his first year back in office. But his speech ended up focusing a little bit more on gripes with other countries. President Trump claimed, quote, without us, most of the countries don't even work, end quote. He also made some digs at French President Emmanuel Macron and blasted NATO for what he says was being too dependent on the U.S. Now, he also discussed ongoing fraud investigations in Minnesota and at one point made a jab at the intellect of Somali immigrants, which actually drew a groan from the crowd.
Finally, in legal news, the Supreme Court heard arguments in a case which could decide the independence of the Federal Reserve. What was this case about, and did the justices give any indication on how they're leaning?
Yeah, John, this revolves around the firing of Fed Governor Lisa Cook for alleged mortgage fraud. In its 112-year history, no president has tried to fire a governor from the Federal Reserve. The Solicitor General, arguing on behalf of President Trump Wednesday, said he acted legally when he sought to remove Cook back in August. Cook's attorney disagreed and said the mortgage fraud allegations, even if they turned out to be true, would not actually meet the legal bar to fire Cook because they were simply minor mistakes on her loan application. And throughout nearly 2 hours of oral arguments, a majority of the justices seemed to agree. They signaled Wednesday they're likely to block Trump from firing Cook. They expressed skepticism that any president could fire a member of the Federal Reserve without cause or due process. We expect a decision in this case sometime by early summer.
Alaska's News Source Washington correspondent Emma Wolforce joining us from D.C. Emma, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do so love the explanations that we get from Emma. They're just, they really help clarify some things in my thoughts. This is an interesting story that we found talking about the steel that makes our buildings and is used in medical equipment. It was quite fascinating because it turns out it's an unintended consequence of the atomic age. Now, Dan Smith, with his moment of silence, shows us how nuclear testing has affected steel production across the world for decades.
It's sometimes said you ought to look backward before you can look forward. This week we're showing how one very specific moment in American history has had knock-on effects for scientific instruments the world over. July 16, 1945, the world's first nuclear device is detonated over New Mexico under the direction of J. Robert Oppenheimer. That successful test, of course, had implications far beyond the scope of this episode. The problem we're talking about involves background radiation. We are constantly bombarded by cosmic radiation, but on Earth it can naturally be found in soil and rocks, to the air we breathe, to the water we drink in extremely low concentrations, mostly uranium, potassium, and thorium. Most nuclear contamination is localized after an explosion, but as soon as all those isotopes like cobalt-60 were unleashed upon the atmosphere, the fallout was diluted and blown around the world with different concentrations depending on the wind and geography. Before that fateful day, your global average dose of natural background radiation was 2.4 millisieverts, with units named after a Swedish physicist. The average dose climbed with each new artificial above-ground test, peaking in 1963 about 4 to 7% above the background. That year, the Limited Test Ban Treaty was signed by the U.S., U.K., and USSR, prohibiting above-ground nuclear testing, and wouldn't you know it, that global average began to drop. Now that 4 to 7% bump doesn't seem like much on paper, but for instruments like Geiger counters, sensors on spacecraft, medical imagers, or other particle detectors, any contamination is unwelcome, and there's your problem. Steelmaking involves compressing atmospheric oxygen to maintain a certain level of carbon, so any steel produced after 1945 would still have traces of that nuclear fallout, and that's where looking backward comes in. Calling it pre-war steel ignores every war before the end of World War II, but in any case, low background steel became highly sought after once our tech started catching up. Your greatest source happens to be below the waves, with shipwrecks and scrap heaps from both world wars legally recovered or illegally scavenged for their nuke-free properties. One big source lies off the coast of Scotland, or at least used to. Not wanting to surrender their ships at the end of the First World War, the Imperial German Navy scuttled 52 ships exactly a week before the Treaty of Versailles was signed. All but 7 have since been raised or partially salvaged, with some of that going toward radio-sensitive scientific projects. NASA has never confirmed or denied its use in the Apollo missions, though the rumors are still floating out there. There's even an Italian particle detector that uses ancient Roman lead salvaged from a wreck to shield the experiment from outside influence, though melting down history to power the future will always be met with a good dose of controversy. These days, it's almost a moot point, with background radiation way down from decades ago, largely thanks to that 1960s treaty. Still, it's a fascinating window into one or several types of one experiment, leading to cascading effects for generations. For this week's Moment of Science, I'm Dan Smith.
And that was just something I never would have thought of, that the steel, of course, was influenced by the radiation in the atmosphere and how it's affecting us today. And the fact that they went back and got pre-World War I ships out of the ocean to get that steel because it doesn't have that radiation in it. I just found that absolutely fascinating. Well, when we come back, a warning from a dermatologist about a popular supplement for hair growth. This is a dermatologist who specializes in caring for cancer patients. We'll have that when we come back. Welcome back to your Morning Edition Extra. And this is a warning from a dermatologist who specializes in caring for cancer patients. Now, a popular supplement used to promote hair and nail growth could interfere with lab results and potentially impact treatment of the disease. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither has the urgent message from this doctor that she wants cancer patients to hear, and safer alternatives for those who want to encourage healthy hair growth.
It's a type of B vitamin that can be found in the medicine cabinets of those wanting to promote healthy hair growth. And for cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy, biotin is a go-to supplement for many.
To help manage the hair thinning, hair loss, the nail changes, the skin changes. And they frequently will turn to the supplement aisle thinking that they are reaching for something that may be natural and therefore safe.
In a published paper, Dr. Brittany Dalmach with the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center says that while biotin itself is not dangerous and can be found naturally in certain foods, taking additional biotin through a supplement can affect a patient's blood work and mask changes in some cancers like those in prostate, thyroid, ovaries, endometrium, and breast.
By interfering with those lab studies, patients may actually get incorrect results that impact their treatment plan.
Dalmaj says a safer alternative is FDA-approved minoxidil, which is applied topically and can speed up hair loss recovery time by up to 2 months. For healthier nails, she says to apply solutions that can harden and moisturize them, which can help increase nail turnover and make them less fragile. For patients who choose to stay on biotin supplements, she says to stop taking them 72 hours before blood work.
That 3-day washout or 3-day hold period can help ensure that the blood work is accurate.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And Dr. Dalmaj says that more than half of the patients that she sees or that come to her about hair loss are on a supplement that they've either found in the store or they've read about online. She said sometimes even doctors recommend taking them, and that's why she wants to spread the awareness about that biotin interference. She says the supplement can also impede other medical results, like testing whether or not a patient has had a heart attack. And a new report is setting screen limits for your kids is not enough. The American Academy of Pediatrics released updated guidance for helping families navigate the digital media world. The new guidance focuses on quality, context, and conversation. The AAP suggests talking often to your kids about things like ads, influencers, and privacy. Other tips also include parental controls, seeking out quality content, and modeling healthy digital habits. Let's take another quick look at some of our top stories here in Alaska, looking at the fact that we are on day 3 of the legislative session down in Juneau, and tonight will be the governor's State of the State address. One of the topics that came up yesterday during a press conference that the governor held yesterday with all of his cabinet is a question about a possible sales tax. Now, he did admit, after our reporter Will Courtney asked him about it, the governor did say that he was going to propose a temporary seasonal sales tax. No real details yet for today, but he did say that it dates back to December when the governor said he introduced his budget package to deal with a $1.5 billion deficit, and that this plan could close some of that gap. The governor said he also wants a PFD, a full PFD, but lawmakers have not historically supported that. Here's just a taste of that press conference yesterday.
First one is the talk of the town right now is that sales tax is going to be proposed tomorrow. Are you able to put those rumors to rest?
There will be a temporary seasonal sales tax concept put forth for discussion with the legislature.
And how optimistic are you that's going to get passed through the legislature?
That's a tough one, right? It's a tough one. I don't have the answer to that until we start having the discussions.
Again, I'm a firm believer in a complete fiscal plan, not a piecemeal fiscal plan. So I say we have to look at the complete fiscal plan in order for me to decide, yeah, I support that.
And that was Senator Mike Cronk. He is a Republican representing Tok and Northway. The governor will hold his State of the State address tonight at 7 o'clock. You can find that right here on our streaming platforms. There's also a potential veto override vote expected to happen at 9 o'clock this morning. Now, the governor did say yesterday during the press conference that he has asked the legislature to push that vote back. So we are still unsure whether the vote is actually going to happen this morning, but if it does, we will absolutely bring that to you live. And if you're interested in politics here in the state of Alaska, you should check out our Alaska's Political Pipeline podcast, and you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. In Fairbanks, the owner of Alcan Medical Group was back in the courtroom yesterday, facing even more felony charges. Casey Blood remains in custody, accused of sexually abusing 2 minors. His preliminary hearing, which is again set for today, has been delayed twice. The reason for the court's decision to postpone is unclear. Meanwhile, Blood's Alcan Medical Clinic is scheduled to close January 31st. And if you would like to find all the latest news, sports, and of course your weather, you can check out alaskasnewssource.com. We have been following the story about the increase in property values in the Anchorage area. Also, 21 firearms stolen from the home of some missing Sitka men. A lot of interesting stories that you might want to catch up. UAA Sports, as I said, news, sports, and weather. You can find it all on alaskasnewssource.com. We will be back right after this. Just realized my mic was not on. You couldn't hear any of that. I said welcome back, and we're talking about that major winter storm. North Texas is gearing up for the first major winter blast of the season, with several days of below freezing temperatures, snow, and ice expected to arrive later this week. Crews began dropping the brining treatment on bridges, overpasses, and major corridors across the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex yesterday. The salt mixture will help delay the ice on the pavement. Officials say the Fort Worth district has approximately 250 pieces of equipment that they can use during winter weather events, and they're around 350 employees who will work 12-hour shifts working around the clock. Equipment such as plows and spreaders are also being staged across North Texas, ready to respond once those temperatures do plummet. Early forecasts show the region could see roughly 90 consecutive hours below freezing. While significant, it is less than the 2021 winter storm when North Texas endured 215 hours, nearly 9 days straight of sub-freezing temperatures. And let's just face it, they are not used to that down in the lower 48. When I didn't have my mic on, and again, I do apologize for that, what I was saying was just getting a little bit colder, and once again, seeing those temperatures start to drop a bit into the interior. Mid-30s for your highs down in Juneau, and then in the Anchorage area, we're going to stay into the 20s for our highs, even getting into the low 30s probably by next Wednesday. So we're actually going to be a little bit on the mild side here in the Anchorage area. Back down in the lower 48, some small retail shops in New York often employ some unusual workers. They're bodega cats, and their job is to keep rodents at bay. Lindsay Tuchman reports on a state bill that could help take care of this feline workforce.
Lydia Aguabia works at the flower stand at Clinton Fruit Market on 47th and 9th in Hell's Kitchen. Her partner in crime is the bodega's resident cat, Pancha.
Animals are love, animals are happiness, and animals has to be a responsibility for everyone.
Pancha and the rest of the city's likely thousands of bodega cats are the reason behind a proposed bill in the state legislature that would establish official health and safety guidelines for cats living in retail food stores. Standards like regular vet checkups, vaccines, and designated cat zones separate from food prep areas. Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal, who represents the Upper West Side, introed the bill last spring, and it was moved to the Agriculture Committee just this month.
If you adopt an animal from the shelter, they have to be spayed or neutered. No telling where those kitties come from that live in bodegas, but just to make sure. I mean, they work, keeping mice and other vermin away, but they should also have access to a good place to rest, good food, water.
This proposal is separate from city legislation introduced last year that would ease enforcement for stores with cats, which under current health codes are technically not allowed. For New Yorkers who love bodega cats, they hope if the bill passes, the state makes it easy for small business owners to pay for health care.
Maybe they can't afford it, maybe, I don't know. But it's something that they could probably make a collection, or some people could voluntarily help out.
The bill still needs to go through hearings and a vote before anything becomes a law. But one thing is for sure, these guys aren't going anywhere. It's just a matter of if and how they're regulated. In Hell's Kitchen, Lindsay Tuckman, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
That is so interesting, because I always wondered about that technically, how can you have an animal running around? Not that we don't have that in stores here in Alaska. I'm also allergic to cats, so I'm not sure how fond I am of the idea of the bodega cats, but I think it's a cool idea. I just probably don't want to be around them because I don't want to start sneezing. Anyway, more information that you need to know. Well, they teach, they entertain, they provide an escape, but books aren't always accessible to everyone, which is so sad. That's why a teen from Northern Virginia started a nonprofit in her county. Now she's putting books in the hands of people all across the country. Here's our national correspondent, Deborah Alfarone, with The Good Side.
The elementary school wanted a lot of children's books. So they're like chapter books, and then what books do you have?
I have a lot of science books. Where do you think they should go?
Tara Bonsall has always been surrounded by books.
Growing up, I actually had asthma, and a lot of the times when people were playing outside, I had seasonal allergies. So I'd spend a lot of my time indoors, and books were what kept me company.
At 17, she's still surrounded by books, but maybe a bit more. She's the founder and CEO of a now national nonprofit with the goal of making books available to everyone.
Your nonprofit, the name of it is?
Everyone's Library.
And why is it Everyone's Library?
A lot of times people think, oh, books are kind of for teenagers or younger kids, but we really want to make books accessible to everyone.
The story of Everyone's Library began when Tara was about 11, in the midst of the pandemic.
It all started through a Girl Scout project. I established a library at a homeless shelter. And this library, we just stocked it with a bunch of little books, and it was outside of this shelter. We talked to the shelter manager, and she was like, wow, the books are amazing. The shelter residents are loving it. I have so many other places that might be interested in having a library too.
Fast forward, and Everyone's Library has now set up 50 outdoor libraries, given away 5,000 books, with more than 18,000 people turning pages across the country. It's grown to 20 chapters spread across several states. The libraries live near shelters, safe houses, and in neighborhoods where people don't have a lot.
If kids are in hardship or sometimes things at home are a little bit difficult, books are definitely something that they can imagine a new life. There's so many possibilities from books. Books are really special in that way.
Tara doesn't do this alone. Her sister Anya and their parents help. Today, they're filling up their library at a family shelter nearby. John Napier is a senior case manager. He says these books offer more than knowledge or an escape.
I think it gives them a chance to know that people do care, that outside of us, obviously we're here to help, but that it shows that people in the community also think about them, so that someone, even though it may be something as small as a book, that someone thought that, oh, this one would be important to someone, or that someone could enjoy this.
The books are all donated. Tara and her sister Anya include a book they published together. It's called Roar. The theme is female empowerment. Tara says there's another book they also strive to stock.
I would say a book that is special to us is Harry Potter. It's just a staple book, so we try to put one Harry Potter in each library that we have.
Tara is about to embark on a new chapter herself. She wants to study to be an engineer.
Where does Everyone's Library go from here?
Just to spread books and as far and wide as possible would be an amazing goal.
I love that. As someone who is an avid reader and a writer, I love the idea of being able to get books into everyone's hands, because they've been so important to me in my life. So I do love that idea. We're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back, we've been talking about it. Speaking of little libraries like that, well, this is the same sort of thing, but it's for Hot Wheels. Welcome back to the Morning Edition Extra for today. Now, you have a new excuse now to play with those toys that you loved as a child. It's a new type of miniature library, and it started popping up around Colorado Springs. Instead of books, the cabinets are filled with both new and vintage Hot Wheels cars. Bradley Davis reports it's about fun, and it's got a good cause too.
You know those little free libraries? It's kind of like that, but not.
That's it. Cars.
They're called mini car neighborhood libraries. There's 7 and counting popping up all across Colorado Springs, and now in 6 different states.
Oh yeah, I love Hot Wheels, dude. When we find those rare ones that come in, it's like, holy smokes, that's a really good time.
It's an excuse for Jason Franklin to become a collector again.
I have more fun with the race car tracks and things than the kids do, I think.
He hopes the car libraries can help change that.
Kind of went away of like, you know, there's no more like teaching cars in shop class. Kids aren't excited about, you know, loud cars. And
Yeah, this is my real life Hot Wheels.
That's why Franklin and Caleb Chambly say they started the group Cars for Everyone.
We were noticing that people just uneducated about checking their oil and checking things that matter about a car.
They've scaled up quickly. Mechanic education.
When you know you could point out the alternators here.
And mechanic mentorships for people with disabilities.
I like to learn things, even though I'm disabled. I do want to learn things and be better in life than not knowing something that I've never been taught before.
And it's not all about the work.
For the last, 3 years, we've probably put 1,000 different people in the front seat of this car.
Playing with Hot Wheels can make it easy to dream about riding in the cockpit.
You know, racing is just inherently an expensive hobby. The help of Cars for Everyone, without the help of, you know, everyone that we work with, this car alone wouldn't be on track. So, you know, it would be selfish of me to keep this to myself.
Hot Wheels, real wheels.
Okay, middle.
And hot rides. It's a few ways that these two want to make cars fun for everyone.
So interesting, the fact that they're using mini libraries. Now, the mini car libraries have only been around for a few months. You can get more information on starting maybe one of your own in the neighborhood by going to carsforeveryone.org. Now, ahead of America's 250th birthday celebration coming up this summer, auditions are being held for reenactors, and storytellers. It's going on in Philadelphia, which is of course the birthplace of our nation. Event organizers are looking for a full cast of history makers. Those include Betsy Ross, George Washington, and others. If you're interested and you're 18 years or older, send an email, a headshot, and a one-page resume to Once Upon a Nation Storytelling Program.
I actually in college came to the Betsy Ross house and waited until all the other visitors were gone and pestered the Betsy and asked, how did you do this job? And she told me.
I do this job every single day and I meet people and you have a little kid looking at you and they're learning about this idea for the very first time. It's new to them. And when it's new to them, it's new to you.
That is such a great idea. And don't forget, what do we call this? It is the semi-quincentennial, which I just love. We're going to play that package again too because I was so fascinated by it. Well, this is interesting because sometimes you can share what you want to say without having to speak. It could be a story or a memory or the expression of a feeling. Local News Live's Anthony Ferreira shows us how patients with dementia in Hawaii are finding connection with a little guidance.
Isn't that nice? Yeah. See, all these years we've been working on textures and holes and poking, and this is kind of culminating in this. Okay.
Suzanne Wang is not just an accomplished ceramic artist, she's a teacher.
The kind of work that I do here is more therapeutic with clay.
Her students at Hawaii Island Adult Care are living with dementia.
One of the biggest issues or things that they get depressed about is that they feel useless now because their executive functioning is so impaired and they're not allowed to do much because it's not safe.
Their memories may be fading, but their hands can still create something beautiful. Wang found a way to keep them engaged and active through art.
Art is like a bridge into the past and into another dimension of feeling and intuition and creativity. Think of it as an exercise. We're going to make all these barnacles.
Hayak is the largest single adult day center in the entire state.
Kupuna can come to celebrate life every day. They can come and make friends. They can have a meal. They can enjoy different activities throughout the day.
One of those activities is Wang's ceramic class. Using molds and texture tools, the kupuna learned to make small clay barnacles, each one unique, just like them.
And it didn't have to be perfect, but it was more, the process was more important than the outcome. So it was just a joy to make with them.
Each barnacle was a small part of a much larger creation, a nearly 6-foot niuhi, or tiger shark, that Wang designed from hundreds of ceramic pieces.
I just thought it would be very poignant to do something like the tiger shark because it's such an apex predator and our kupuna are so vulnerable. So kind of bridging those two themes together.
She calls it Niuhi Rising. The talented artists are now seeing the finished creation in person.
Yeah, who's that?
Some of them, they can't remember that they were the ones participating in this special project.
Some of the barnacles.
Suzanne was amazing, and they did like a recorded video of them doing the classes and whatnot, so they got to see themselves on the screen.
Look. Yeah. You want to see you? You're in the video. 1, 2, there's your hands. They were blown away.
Look at smile. I can't take it.
Some of them remembered that they made them, and some of them had no recollection, but they felt something. They felt like the presence of this collaboration. I think that you can put feeling and memory through touch into an object, and that has power. And so I think that that kind of energy probably resonates somehow.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on this morning's Morning Edition Extra. It is Thursday. We do have the State of the State address coming up tonight at 7 o'clock right here on your streaming platform. So don't forget to join us then. That'll happen at 7 o'clock.